I'm going to take a second as part of this to read you. One of her books is called the Words from the Mount of Blessings, and it's basically a book on the Sermon on the Mount. And she goes through it phrase by phrase, and it's amazing. And I think it was worth sharing with you. And all of her works are published by her estate, and all of them are free now on all those PDFs online. The Sermon on the Mount is heaven's benediction to the world, a voice from the throne of God. It was given to mankind to be to them the law of duty and the light of heaven, their hope and consolation in despondency, their joy and comfort in all the vicissitudes and walks of life. Here the Prince of Preachers, the Master Teacher, utters the words that the Father gave him to speak. The Beatitudes are Christ's greeting, not only to those who believe, but to the whole human family. He seems to have forgotten for a moment that he is in the world, not in heaven, and he uses the familiar salutation of the world of light. Blessings flow from his lips as the gushing forth of a long, sealed current of rich life. Christ leaves us in no doubt as to the traits of character that he will always recognize and bless. From the ambitious favorites of the world, he turns to those whom they disown, pronouncing all blessed who receive his light and life. To the poor in spirit, the meek, the lowly, the sorrowful, the despised, the persecuted, he opens his arms of refuge, saying, "Come unto me, and I will give you rest." Excuse me. Christ can look upon the misery of the world without a shade of sorrow for having created man. In the human heart, he sees more than man's possibilities, the height to which he may attain. He knows that even though human beings have abused their mercies and destroyed their God-given dignity, yet the Creator is to be glorified in their redemption. Throughout all time, the words that Christ spoke from the Mount of Beatitudes will retain their power. Every sentence is a jewel from the treasure house of truth. The principles enunciated in this discourse are for all ages and for all classes of people. With divine energy, Christ expressed his faith and hope as he pointed out class after class as blessed because of having formed righteous characters. Living the life of the life giver through faith in him, everyone can reach the standard held up in his words. I just thought that was a glorious commentary on the Beatitudes, and because another prayer that we tend to recite or say without ever thinking about what the words really mean. What does he mean by blessed are the meek, and who are the peacemakers, etc. And it leads me into talking about prayer, as we have a couple times in the past. Because as I think about preaching it here, I try and think about who I'm preaching to, which I don't do. It's a varied group of people who have varied beliefs and varied levels of faith. And you can't just preach to the Bible, because not everyone is a Bible reader, and not everyone believes as deeply as others. So talking about prayer or invoking the idea of prayer can be hard. So in thinking about it, to be honest, this is another quote from Ellen White. The strength acquired in prayer to God will prepare us for our daily duties. The temptations to which we are daily exposed make prayer a necessity in order that we may be kept by the power of God through faith. The desires of the mind should be continually ascending in silent prayer. When we are surrounded by influences calculated to lead us away from God, our petitions for help and strength must be unwearied. Excuse me. Even there, this is universal. This is not Bible Belt. This is not extorting people. But this is a very universal invocation as to why prayer is useful. Unless we continue to pray, we will never be successful in breaking down pride and overcoming the power of temptation to sinful indulgences which keep us from the Savior. The light of truth, sanctifying the life, will discover to the receiver the sinful passions of his or her heart, which are striving for the mastery, and which make it necessary for him to stretch every nerve and exert all their powers to resist Satan, that he may conquer them through the merits of Christ. And that was part of her book called The Youth's Instructor. This was a series of things aimed at youth. But so it's possible to think, I think we should think about prayer not so much as biblical or Christian, or I think we should think of prayer as a way to invoke whatever our view of God is and to find strength in that, because it takes strength to face daily life. You know, it takes strength to face what's going on in the world. No matter how successful you are, no matter how well off you are, no matter how poor you are, it still takes strength. Because there's always so much happening that we know in our hearts is not quite right. And sometimes it's very frustrating because we're limited in our ability to change all that. Because I don't walk so well these days, and I meet my Barry for breakfast at the Chelsea Square Diner, I took a cab, a good old-fashioned yellow cab, which was so great to find, from there to here this morning. And I got in the cab, and the driver said, "Do you have any cash?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, he said, "Oh, well, could you pay me in cash? I'm not going to run the meter because they take 25% of the meter fare I have to give to them." And, you know, I said, "Certainly." So we came down here, and I gave him $8 in cash. And he was overwhelmed. I must have said thank you a dozen times. Then he also, at that moment, figured out I was going to church and was wearing a collar and said, "Oh, please pray for me. Pray for all of us." And that's the kind of thing that people say, "Oh, what do you mean by pray for them?" It means keep them in your hearts. And this is a man who's working and working hard, didn't seem angry about it. He understands he's working hard, but he asked for my help. And I had a $100 bill and 8 ones. I gave him the 8 ones. Then asking him to break the 100 was a bit much. I would have given him 20. I mean, it's so little when we have so much, but it has such a big impact. And prayer can bring us emotional well-being. It's a form of meditation. It helps reduce stress and anxiety. It really can be. It can be anything you want it to be, but it doesn't. People, I think, shy away from the word in the same sense that people run away from the word church. It's very frustrating. Even at the services, the wonderful services we had during the month, where there were a lot of new people here, you talk to them and you say, you know, you should come back to our church, and you see them shiver. You know, what else can we call it? I mean, but I mean, it's funny how people react to that. Well, they react to that, I think, because they've been preached at, not for. They've been prayed at, not for. Their needs are not incorporated in the service. It's one of the things that makes Chelsea Community Church so unique, and one of the things that's frustrating about the fact we have trouble getting people here, but you have trouble getting anybody into anything called a church. So out in the world, prayer provides an opportunity for introspection. When you pray, you tend to think and self-reflect, at least I do, and you gain insight into your thoughts and feelings and what you're doing, and can sort of process some of them in a space or in a mindset that's related to the holy, related to the powers, but doesn't have to be about Christ or St. Paul or the apostles or what happened 2,000 years ago. It can be about what happened 2 weeks ago. But it's a great opportunity to do that, and we don't get that as many opportunities. And you can do it on the subway, on the bus, driving to work, on an airplane. It doesn't have to be spoken aloud. So it's a very powerful tool to use to keep your life in balance. And I've always found it that way. I mean, I've always found that I sort of pray continuously, not in the sense that people think, I think, not in the sense of, but in the sense of reflection and thanks. Because one of the things I'm praying is it keeps me aware of the things I should be thankful to have. Now, it doesn't matter who you thank. You should be thankful. You don't have to thank anything or person in particular, but you should be aware of those things. Because first off, they make your life better. Because when you keep in mind the things that you have and the joys that you do have, even when you have sorrows, it makes you feel better because it keeps your mind in a better place. So that's another expansive use of prayer. Then, of course, prayer in a community links people together, which is why we still have churches and services. Because coming together to pray also is a different dimension and a different way. It's perhaps a little more structured and maybe a little bit more traditionally religious, but it still brings power into your life that you wouldn't have otherwise. The other thing that praying tends to do, again, all these things are largely personal, but I hope it does for you, is it helps ground us morally and ethically. It makes you think about your values and ethics. And they are whatever you think they should be. I'm not in any position, nor is anyone, to tell you what your values and ethics should be. I can suggest that it ought to be treat others the way you want to be treated. But beyond that, your values and ethics are your own, but you have to be aware of them. Because sometimes upsets that we find in our lives are because we've done something that goes against our values and ethics, and now we're sort of sorry we did it, or we don't know why we did it. And as I've always said, in those situations, all you can do is either fix it or forgive yourself. But it helps, prayer of some form helps keep that in mind. And you find when you live to whatever your values and ethics are, they may not be the same as mine, they may not be the same as your next person's, but whatever they are, when you live to them, your life feels better. You don't run into those little twinges, oops, I don't think I wanted to do that really. I shouldn't have really told that guy to go screw himself for, crossing the street in front of me, or whatever else happens in the daily life or on the subway. And it's easier not to have done the things than it is to try and fix them or get over them. And prayer is a way of keeping those things in mind. And prayer is a spiritual expression. Now, it doesn't matter if you're an agnostic, if you're not sure what you believe, if you're a Trinitarian, if you're not a Trinitarian. It's a way to explore your spirituality and belief without committing to a specific doctrine or creed. In your own personal prayer, in your own personal relationship with God, it's yours. See, all those things belong to you. And I think in most mainline religions, the religions we're brought up in, that's taken away from us. It belongs to the church. It belongs to the preacher or the priest or the bishop. It belongs to you. You have to confess your sins. It isn't your relationship. It's mediated. And prayer takes the mediation out of it and lets you think about it. And nobody minds. Whatever you think of God, God doesn't mind if you question, if you're wondering, if you see what's happening in the world and say, how can there be a God? And maybe you'll get an answer. But maybe at least expressing the question without feeling like you've stepped on some doctrine or now you've been a naughty boy or a naughty girl for doing that. Having expressed the question is a great way to move on to what you think the answer is. The answer may be, I can't believe there is no God. There is no God. There can't be a God the way the world's running. That may be your answer, but it'll be your answer, and it'll enable you to act on that and act out in your life that way, which is very helpful. It also encourages an open-mindedness, because as you contemplate what you think, you tend to think, I wonder why other people think other things. And it can lead to reading or studying, not in the heavy-duty studying like for a test, but this work by Ellen G. White, extraordinary collection of work that I found. I read trouble with discovering these things, and then there goes the week, because I especially when the PDFs are available online, boy, did I start plowing through her work. But I kept finding more and more of it. It was very interesting and useful. I mean, she wrote from a practical perspective that some people do, but because she was outside of the she was a member of various movements that led to the Seventh-day Adventist movement, which I totally misunderstood. Now I understand it a little better. But because of that, she was writing from a perspective of life. She was writing to youth about how to live. Yes, she was preaching. Yes, she was talking about a moral, upright life. And yes, she was committed to God and to Christ. But if you leave the Christ and God part out of what you read, if that is bothersome, what she's talking about still applies. It doesn't require that to be meaningful. So trying to think about prayer in these different ways is a very useful way of having it be a powerful tool in your survival toolkit, and what it takes to get through the day. And I think we tend to think of prayer in the wrong way. We tend to think of it as what goes on here, or kneeling down, or with our hands folded in a silent room. It isn't necessarily that. It's part of a toolkit that can help you survive in what is a challenging world. It's always been a challenging world. It continues to be a challenging world. That's not going to change. That will only change the more we come to grips with what it is and how we can impact it and how we can feel comfortable in what we do. Because when you're uncomfortable and when it does nothing works. You have to be confident and comfortable in yourself and your relationship with the wider universe before you can do anything else. And once you are, it's amazing how much of the unconscious burden goes away. All the load we carry around from our youth or from our upbringing or from whatever, it gets lifted from our shoulders because, as I've often said, I hand all my problems to God at the end of the day and I forget about them. So that's our deal. I'll worship you, you take care of the problems. And that's how it works. And it does make for an amazingly I have the most lighthearted days, I will tell you. Even on the worst of them, they're light. And that's, I think, because I can pray anytime I want. I'm not constrained by reciting a prayer. And I use that power all the time. I use that power with Gus, and I use that power with friends, and it's helpful. So I encourage you to think about that aspect of prayer, that different approach of prayer. I hope it's useful. I encourage you to look at Ellen G. White's work. The book on the Sermon on the Mount is wonderful because we all know the Sermon on the Mount. And she does phrase by phrase, and it's like a commentary, but it's not like an academic commentary, which makes it wonderfully fun to read. So I hope that's useful. I hope that's an interesting, different change of pace from some other things. And usually the reason I write out my sermons word for word is because I want to time them. The only reason is if I just do it extemporaneously, I'd go on for hours. So I made the 15-minute mark, which I think is perfect. But that's what I always strive for. But that's why I don't usually preach extemporaneously, because it'll go on. So thank you very much. God bless us all.